case that sent shockwaves across South Africa, policewoman Rosemary Ndlovu was sentenced to 6 life terms after she went on a 6-year killing spree targeting people she had previously taken a funeral insurance policy out on. She murdered 6 hapless victims and attempted to murder another 7. That 7 included a small baby and 5 young children. And all of them were her own family members. She picked off her family one by one, and when held to account in a court of law, she didn't show a single sign of remorse. The story is about betrayal, greed, and a shocking turn of events. It sounds like something from a crime novel, but amazingly, it's all too real. This killer went from being a cop to a cold-blooded criminal. She fooled everyone, turned against her family, and caused heartbreak and disbelief. This is the twisted tale of Rosemary Ndlovu, a story that's hard to believe, but very true. Welcome to Grim Riddles. We appreciate you tuning in today. Joyce Ndlovu's day started out as any other, but ended in shock. She was busy in the kitchen and saw a large group of men walk up to her front door. It was the police, and what they told her next was unbelievable. She and her children were meant to die that night. To add to her horror, they said that her sister, Rosemary, had hired hitmen to murder her and her 5 children, the youngest being just 5 months, by drugging them, strangling them, and then burning down their house.
I think my ex-boyfriend here, which is a Sunday, that was a guest so she's out now. But I'm not done. My case is bullshit. I won't deny a phone. So now it's back. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah, so legal.
No mess. So the what claims? I bet that. About lips.
Labantwana labakhe laba nabo imali izobhadala for bona noma
ngeke ibhadale for abantwana izobhadala.
So
ngeke basale ngoba nakubakhona and baba ngasala uyaza bawuphisa. So akuthi mayisha show.
Yonke into engaphakathi.
Ngeke bayazi ukuthi ikhandlele. So boyfriend ex-today endlini. Ngasho izinto zakhe sesinyangeni zala ita.
At first, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. It was hard to process that the sister with whom she grew up and trusted had planned to wipe out her entire family. She was seen as the golden member of her family, a trusted police officer blessed with good luck and success. Today we travel to South Africa. South Africa is a country located at the southern tip of Africa. It is a land of contrasts with stunning natural beauty, vibrant cultures, and a rich history. South Africa is home to a diverse population with over 60 million people from a variety of ethnic and cultural backgrounds. The country's official languages are Afrikaans, English, Ndebele, Northern Sotho, Swati, Songa, Venda, Xhosa, and Zulu. South Africa is a country with a complex and fascinating history. The country was colonized by the Dutch and the British and was under apartheid rule from 1948 to 1994. South Africa is now a democracy and is a full member of the United Nations, the African Union, and the Commonwealth of Nations. I'm sure the major cities such as Johannesburg, Durban, and Cape Town are well known, but perhaps not the traditional townships inhabited almost exclusively by the black population. To understand the setting and the people involved, we need to give a brief history. The discovery of diamonds and gold in South Africa caused a mining boom. This transformed the country's economy, drawing men from rural areas to mines and leaving women to manage homes and farms alone for years on end. This changed family dynamics, and when apartheid was implemented in 1948, racial segregation was enforced, with black people forced to move to certain areas, giving rise to the townships. These townships, initially mere shanty towns, have evolved into integral parts of urban landscapes, yet they continue to grapple with overcrowding, poverty, and a lack of basic services. Amidst this backdrop of struggle and resilience, community rituals stand out as significant events, drawing people together in support and shared tradition. Weddings and funerals are significant in these communities. The entire community typically participates in these events, contributing in various ways. Funerals in particular involve numerous mourning rituals and a week-long wake with cleansing rituals. The family of the deceased is expected to provide food and cover funeral expenses, which can be substantial. Contributions from the community aren't limited to financial aid, they also include organising cooking and offering support during the mourning period. The cost of traditional funerals can range from 26,500 Rand to 110,000 Rand. This is about 800 to 5,500 US dollars. Funeral insurance plans are therefore important and very necessary. Rosemary Ndlovu's early years were shaped by extraordinary and challenging circumstances. Her mother was in an unconventional arrangement, but normal within her African tribal culture. The Rain Queen, or Queen Mojaji, is a unique figure among the Boloperu people in southern Africa's Limpopo province. She's known for her special powers, like controlling rain and clouds. More than just a leader, she's a mystical figure who can bring rain to the land. The Rain Queen doesn't marry in the usual sense, but has many wives from different villages in the Boloperu kingdom. These wives are more like royal attendants or ladies in waiting, chosen by the Queen's royal council from chiefs' families. It's not about marriage, it's a diplomatic move to keep the chiefs loyal to the Queen. It's a matrilineal line passing from mother to daughter. Therefore, same-sex marriages were common in this culture. Normally a male family relative is asked or is chosen to father any children. Nomia Rosemary Ndlovu was born from such an arrangement. Rosemary's grandfather Noel experienced chest pains and sought relief from a sangoma, or a traditional faith healer. During this process, Noel's sister Maria Sophie was essentially given in marriage to the sangoma Maria Mayeni as a form of payment for Noel's successful healing. This unusual union led to the birth of two daughters, Audrey and Rosemary, symbolizing a blend of traditional beliefs and familial sacrifice. The daughters were conceived by a male family relative or friend. Maria Rosemary Ndlovu was born near Bushbuck Ridge in the province of Mpumalanga in around 1978. She attended primary and high school there. Her mother, Maria Sophie, was neglected by her partner. Maria struggled to provide for her daughters, so Rosemary's aunt Lucy took Rosemary home to care for her and to help ease these family burdens. Later, Maria moved to the New Forest in Limpopo, a community that embraced her and her children. There she married again to an older man with whom she had 5 more children, including 2 daughters and a son they named Director. This complex familial backdrop, rife with unconventional relationships and challenges, laid the foundation for the intriguing yet tumultuous path that Rosemary would eventually follow. In 1994, 18-year-old Rosemary met 28-year-old Han Koza, a security guard for the local tribal authority. Their relationship quickly blossomed and soon Rosemary was pregnant. In March 1995, they welcomed their son Jaunty, and they were married shortly after. Training to become a police officer meant moving to Johannesburg, a move that, according to Han's brother Rogers, changed her profoundly. Rosemary grew distant, constantly making excuses to avoid visits, leaving Han heartbroken and confused. In a bid to bring her back, Han built a house on his family's land for Rosemary, hoping it would draw her back to village life. But Rosemary, now accustomed to city life, showed no interest in returning. In 2004, Han was diagnosed with tuberculosis and hospitalized, but Rosemary seldom visited him. Just 2 days before Han's death, Rosemary visited him in the hospital. His condition deteriorated and he died on December the 18th, 2004. In a final act of detachment, Rosemary briefly attended his funeral, but quickly returned to Johannesburg, neglecting the customary burial rituals. She then sold the house Han had built and claimed his life insurance, leaving behind her son and a trail of unanswered questions and heartache. Rosemary was stationed in Tembisa, a black township in Gauteng province, formerly known as Transvaal. She had fully embraced city life, and she loved dressing up, going out with friends, and spending time at Caesar's Palace Casino. She earned a decent salary, around 18,000 Rand a month. That's about $960. But her gambling addiction and extravagant lifestyle led to financial struggles. To keep up her lifestyle, she borrowed money from loan sharks and hung around with illegal arms dealers. Colonel Natepi Bolakar, the station commander at Tembisa South Police Station, recalled incidents of Rosemary stealing firearms, eroding her colleagues' trust. She was investigated for this, and although nothing was ever proven, her reputation at the station was irreparably damaged. Rosemary had the rank of sergeant, but was never promoted further. She worked in the Community Intervention Center at the police station, helping trauma and abuse victims. But she often called in sick, especially towards the end of the month. In 2017, a group of over 15 loan sharks arrived at the police station, demanding to speak with her. They claimed Rosemary owed them a significant amount of money and threatened violence against her. Colonel Bolakar intervened, planning to help her settle her debts. Rosemary, distressed, revealed she owed an amount equal to her annual salary. She assured her superiors that an upcoming insurance payout would clear her debts and resolve the issue. To solve this problem, she came up with a plan. She would take insurance policies out on family members and arrange accidents or unnatural deaths. Rosemary's first known victim was her cousin, witness Madala Homa, who had also moved to the city for better job prospects. In 2012, Rosemary encouraged his mother Lucy to add him to her funeral policy, saying the city was more dangerous. Despite a limited income, Lucy added him to the policy. In March 2012, his family lost contact with him, and Rosemary told her cousin that she was worried because he hadn't paid his rent. Rosemary and Godfrey went to the Olifantsfontein police station, where Rosemary suggested a body that had been found was her relative witness. Eva later learned of his death, struggling to grasp the reality. The autopsy showed witness had suffered a violent death. His death deeply affected his family. Eve, his sister, faced numerous challenges after his funeral. The family's unity was shattered, forcing Eve to drop out of school to support her mother financially. She also felt unsafe without her brother's protection. Lucy, witness's mother, was filled with bitterness and grief. Rosemary never visited once after the funeral, adding to the sense of betrayal and loss. The former South African cop insured her sister Audrey with different insurance companies. On Tuesday morning, the 25th of June 2013, Rosemary Ndlovu intentionally served Audrey a tea mixed with a harmful substance and left. In the afternoon, she returned to Audrey's house to check whether she was alive, strangled her and left. The woman's decomposing body was found much later. Rosemary received more than 700,000 rand from insurance claims as her sister's beneficiary. In June 2016, Zanele Motha, Rosemary's niece, was beaten to death. Zanele's relationship with her aunt Rosemary was complex and distant. Despite not being blood-related, Zanele considered Rosemary to be her aunt. In 2015, she reached out to Rosemary about a house inherited from Rosemary's brother director. The following year, she needed a co-signer for a college loan. Rosemary agreed and then secretly took out a funeral insurance policy. After a car accident in June 2016, Zanele was hospitalized, but her injuries were not life-threatening. Her partner, Jabu, became worried when he discovered Rosemary had Zanele's phone after her discharge. Mysteriously, Zanele never collected her prescribed medication. Tragically, Zanele was declared dead at Audrey Hospital in Kempton Park just 2 days after being discharged. The post-mortem revealed severe injuries inflicted after her hospital release, and Rosemary claimed Zanele had post-discharge chest pains, but this was contradicted by medical testimony. Jabu and the family were left heartbroken and confused, especially as they could only view Zanele's body from a distance at the mortuary, with Rosemary controlling all the documents. Jabu struggled with the loss, particularly in comforting their grieving child. In October 2015, Maurice Mabasa, Rosemary's boyfriend and the father of her child, was stabbed to death. Rosemary Ndlovu's relationship with Maurice Mabasa, who was a chauffeur employed at the US Embassy in Pretoria, began unexpectedly at a roadblock where Rosemary was on duty. Maurice soon introduced Rosemary to his family. They were charmed by her status as a police officer, but the family quickly noticed inconsistencies in her behavior. Maurice's sister, Lucille, recalled Rosemary's unpredictable nature, marked by humor and sweetness, but also rage and the constant presence of a gun. The couple's relationship was rocky, often strained over financial issues. They had a daughter, Makanani. Maurice had some alarming close calls, narrowly escaping an assailant, and then there was a suspicious fire at their home with petrol bottles found under their bed. Rosemary's family had become suspicious of her, suspecting she was somehow involved in these deaths. Maurice, fearing for his safety, left her. On October the 15th, 2015, Maurice's brutally beaten body was found in Olifantsfontein. That morning, Rosemary had reported him missing, later displaying dramatic grief at the police station, raising suspicions. His brother, Justice Mabasa, identified Maurice's body at the mortuary. Following Maurice's death, Rosemary was treated for shock and left their daughter Makanani in the care of Maurice's family. Rosemary Ndlovu used 40,000 rand from Mabasa's 416,000 rand life insurance claim to organise his funeral. While Rosemary was killing with no consequence, someone had taken notice. Someone with an eagle eye and excellent investigative skills. Little did Rosemary know that the death of her fiancé Maurice Mabasa would be the start of her downfall. She had made someone suspicious, and while she carried on with her murders, he would be in the background stalking her. So let's take a look at how Rosemary came onto his radar. Starting his policing career 19 years ago, Mabunda quickly rose through the ranks to become a detective. In his role, he honed the skill of meticulously examining each piece of evidence, a trait that proved crucial in this investigation. Maurice Mabasa's death had been assigned for investigation to the Olifantsfontein police station where Sergeant Mabunda was stationed. Rosemary, who worked at another police station, had to come to Olifantsfontein to have the insurance documents signed. She asked a fellow worker to sign them. Sergeant Keshi Mabunda's suspicions were aroused by this. I asked my colleague what he was signing and he said insurance documents. I asked him how many and he said more than 15. Then I asked him to call her back, make copies and file the document, Keshi recalls. After that I took over the case. And so his journey with Rosemary Ndlovu began. His investigation revealed that Rosemary had taken out 16 funeral policies on Maurice, naming herself as the sole beneficiary, and she was set to receive a hefty sum in the event of Maurice's unnatural death. The next victim was her nephew, Mayeni Mashaba. He was the brother of Zanele, who had died suspiciously in June 2016. Mayeni Mashaba was found dead by the side of a road in Pretoria East, his body riddled with gunshot wounds. He and Rosemary had earlier planned to meet. It is unclear whether he was also insured or not. After Zanele's funeral, the family started to suspect that Rosemary was involved in her death, and now her brother had also been murdered. Constable Prince Matt Shakiri was the first officer on the scene where Mayeni was found. He discovered that Rosemary was the last dialed number on Mayeni's phone. Rosemary arrived at the scene in just 30 minutes, which was very quick considering how far her home was from the crime scene. According to his friends, Mayeni had received a call from Rosemary just before he disappeared. She asked him to meet her alone at a nearby spot. After this call, Mayeni left, and that was the last time his friend saw him alive. Her family's suspicions grew even stronger. In the background, Sergeant Mabasa was steadily on her trail, collecting evidence. Brilliant was the son of Audrey, who had previously been murdered by Rosemary. Brilliant confronted Rosemary after learning that she had claimed his mother's funeral insurance money. In response to his demands for a share of the money, Ndlovu orchestrated his murder. Machego's body was later discovered on the streets, showing signs of head injuries. He was last seen on January the 22nd, 2018, when he was on his way to meet Rosemary to collect some documents. Brilliant often spoke to Rosemary on the phone, his grandmother said. His grandmother suspected Rosemary immediately when she was informed of his death. The family received no support from Rosemary for Brilliant's funeral, and his grandmother was grief-stricken at not only his brutal end, but also the indifference of his maternal family. By now, Sergeant Mabunda's investigation had widened to include other suspicious deaths in Rosemary's circle. He found that in the murder cases of witness Homa and Audrey Ndlovu, where Rosemary had even impersonated Audrey applying for insurance applications, the fraud case was not being handled or investigated properly. For 3 years, Sergeant Mabunda worked under the radar, carefully avoiding Rosemary and masking his investigation by using fake names in case files. His findings were alarming. Rosemary was maintaining 28 funeral policies, a foreboding sign of possibly more planned crimes. After Zanele's death, Mabunda acted quickly, marking Rosemary as a potential fraudster to insurance companies. Rosemary had already managed to claim a substantial amount from Zanele's life insurance. Mabunda connected crucial dots using cell phone records, which placed Rosemary at the crime scenes of both Willie Mashaba and Brilliant's murders, with her phone pinpointed at the exact locations. As the evidence piled up, it became increasingly clear that Rosemary's insatiable greed had led her down a path of repeated murder. Yet before Mabunda could make his move, 2 more deaths occurred, further highlighting the devastating impact of her actions. After Maurice Mabasa's murder, Rosemary's daughter Makanini was being cared for by his mother Mary Mabasa. Rosemary later took custody of Makanini and left with her. Makanini then became ill and was pronounced dead on arrival at a hospital. Rosemary again benefited financially, inheriting a trust fund established for Makanini. By mid-2017, as insurance companies stopped payouts because of claim inconsistencies and with mounting pressure from loan sharks, Rosemary's desperation grew. Ndlovu had asked two men, Akiwe Mkhize and Jabulu Kuneni, to wipe out 7 of her family members, including her mother, Maria Mushwana, just before her arrest in 2018. The two men reported her to a station commander, Colonel Balokcha. The Hawks, the South African version of the FBI, were alerted, leading to a sting operation. An undercover officer named Rasta posed as a hitman. Rosemary detailed her murderous plans to him, including burning down her sister's house with petrol. This conversation was recorded, leading to Rosemary's eventual arrest.
So the what lives at Madala. About lives with Madala.
Labantwana labakhe laba nabo imali izobhadala for bona noma
Charged with multiple crimes, including murder and fraud, Rosemary was brought face to face with her family at Joyce's house after her arrest. She remained silent despite the gravity of the situation. Sergeant Mabunda revealed that Rosemary had taken out 7 funeral policies in Joyce's name, treating her own family members as mere pawns in a chilling financial scheme. After Rosemary's arrest, Sergeant Mabunda and Colonel Boloka faced real danger as, according to information from an informant, Rosemary had ordered hits on both officers.
She hired people to kill me with my eyes. I said, if she doesn't kill me, she will make sure that I suffer. She'll get my son at school. She knows what my son is school. She just was schooling just here. Then she's gonna dig in my life. There was no way I would tell them. But I was like very much protective. If my son went to play soccer, I would make sure I went to the ground. And when it's finished, I drop him at home, telling them, no, don't go out late, stay in the house.
Despite the stress of it all, Keshi continued to probe Ndlovu's litany of crimes with the full support of his wife, son and 2 daughters. The prison guards found that her associates were smuggling cell phones into her prison, so she was transferred to the Kozimyampuru high-security C-Max prison. There was a constant threat to their safety, and officers Mabunda and Boloka remained vigilant. Rosemary persistently sought bail over the next 3 years, but Mabunda's testimony at each hearing emphasized her danger to society. Her trial began on January the 21st, 2022. During her court appearance, Ndlovu was the star of her own show, posing for pictures and then becoming a very hostile witness. There were 54 witnesses called, including family members, colleagues, and the hitmen she had hired. Things got heated in court when prosecutor, advocate Rihanna Williams, put it to Ndlovu that she had killed witness Madala Homa, Audrey Ndlovu, Maurice Mabasa, Zanele Motha, Mayeni Mashaba, and brilliant Machego. Rosemary was fuming at the accusations and denied them angrily. The judge had to admonish her for shouting in court. While the evidence was largely circumstantial, including cell phone records and insurance policies, it painted a damning picture of Rosemary. She maintained her innocence, claiming a lack of direct evidence linking her to the crimes.
Ntoko baba hi ku swisuso hinkwaswo a ndzi endlanga mara loko court yo yi ku yi vona nandzu a ku na lexi nga ta xi endla. Ka tifamily hinkwato kusukela ka family ya ka Mabasa, ya ka Mashego, ya ka Motha, family ya ka hina ka Ndlovu na family ya ka Homa. Ku ya hi n'we timbirhi ta n'we sweswi mi ti byela ku ni nga dlaya maxaka n'we a ni tivi nchumu.
Forensic criminologist Colonel Elmarie Mayberg deemed her dangerous and irredeemable, highlighting her total lack of empathy. In his judgment on October the 22nd, 2022, Judge Ramarumo Manama meticulously addressed the complexity of the case against Rosemary Ndlovu. He acknowledged that the evidence presented was largely circumstantial, and that for such evidence to be accepted, it needed to align cohesively with the prosecution's theory. All victims were last seen with Rosemary, or she was the last person they had contacted. And they all suffered violent deaths. She was the sole beneficiary on multiple insurance policies taken out on the victims. and all these policies were specifically structured to provide greater benefits in the event of unnatural deaths. She was quick to submit claims against these policies, often within hours of the victim's identities being confirmed. There is video evidence of Rosemary instructing a hitman on how to murder her sister, explaining that the hitman would benefit from the murder through the payment from the insurance money she expected to receive. Rosemary's crimes were calculated and cruel, characterizing her as manipulative and deceitful. She used her familial ties to lure her victims into a false sense of security before striking lethally, likening her presence and role in these murders to that of a vulture preying on the vulnerable. Based on the weight of the circumstantial evidence and the constant patterns that emerged from it, Judge Manama found Rosemary guilty on almost all counts, underscoring the conclusion that her crimes were both brazen and calculated.
I accordingly imposed the following sentence on accused. The accused is sentenced to life imprisonment on each count.
Rosemary received 6 life sentences for the murders, along with additional sentences for other related crimes, all to be served concurrently. She was convicted of the murders of her fiancé, Yangwani Maurice Mabasa, who was found dead in Olifantsfontein on the East Rand with 76 stab wounds. Her cousin, witness Madala Homa, whose body was discovered in a field near Olifantsfontein. He was stoned to death. Her niece, Zanele Motha, who died upon arrival at Albert Hospital in Kempton Park after she was brutally assaulted. Zanele's brother, Mayeni Mashaba, who was shot dead at replay after Ndlovu picked him up at Sangweni taxi rank in Tembisa. Her sister, Audrey Ndlovu, who was poisoned and strangled in her home in Tembisa. Audrey's son, brilliant Machego, whose body was discovered at a marketplace in Dwarsloop, near Bushbuckridge. He was hacked to death. She is also suspected of killing her children Jyoti and Makanini. Sergeant Mabunda wasn't able to prove she was responsible for her children's death, but he is certain that she is. The heartache caused by her actions was immense.
A ni swi koti ku rivalela n'wana wa me a ri wun'we
I can't forgive
vana vambirhi
forgive her, my lord. That was my only child.
Rosemary u pfuke Sunday ya suka famba a ku na nchumu lexi mina ni xi tivaka kusuka ka tlhelo ra yena a nga va ka xi endlile laha kaya a ku na nchumu swilo leswi a swi vulavula laha swi vuye swi ni hlamarisa ngopfu ku why a tlhaya mahlweni a hemba ku ri ku wa swi tiva ku a nga endla nchumu mina ntsena ni ta n'wi rivalela loko u ni byela ku i dlayile kwihi boti wa mina u n'wi dlayile kwihi loko u rhanga ni byela ku u n'wi dlayile kwini hi kona ni nga ta kota ku ni rhanga ni hleketa ku
nna o tloa mathomong ka pelong yaka ga le ke tseba gore ke ena empa ka gobane o la threatina bana o banka from nna nako ya funeral so since e ne ntse le jwalo ntho ke e thabelang gone ke gore o foundile guilty maybe ga ne kgona gore
wa tiva hi swa ku a ndzi swi tivi ni nga vulavula ndi kwini
I don't know what to say. I'm overwhelmed.
Joyce Ndlovu wept when the judge handed down his verdict. Joyce was relieved to hear that the person she had feared for years, the woman who had picked off her family one by one, was going to be locked away for the rest of her life. She also learned in court that Ndlovu had plotted to kill their mother, Maria Mushwana. It took me a long time to accept and make peace with the accusations against her because we're sisters, and she was an officer of the law. Joyce says her sister never showed any signs of psychopathic behavior. We felt safe around her, she says. It turned out that no one in the family was safe, not even Ndlovu's fiancé Maurice Mabasa. Although she's since forgiven her sister, she doesn't know if they'll ever be able to repair their relationship because the betrayal is too deep. Rosemary didn't show any remorse. Watching and hearing what she said about me and my kids really broke my heart, Joyce says. For 3 years, he pursued the former policewoman and felt vindicated when the late Judge Monama not only convicted her, but praised him for his watertight case. Had it not been for Keshi, the files would have been in the police station gathering dust, Monama said. His dedication was also recognized by the South African Police Service recently when he was named National Detective and Forensic Services Employee of the Year. Now that she's behind bars, life is a little easier for this top cop. He spends his free time fishing and watching his kids play in the park, content in knowing he no longer has to look over his shoulder. His dedication and keen investigative abilities were key in bringing to light the hidden truths of this chilling case. This case had a profound social and cultural impact, influencing community discussions on trust and safety, and becoming a focal point in media coverage, thereby shaping cultural narratives about crime and justice in South African society. Rosemary Ndlovu was back in court on the 17th of April 2023.
Serial killer Rosemary Ndlovu and her co-accused Nomsa Mudau are back in court for attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. And that is in connection with the killing of Justice Mudau. He was Nomsa's husband when this alleged plan to acquire a hitman to kill him was hatched. The state is still leading evidence and is currently on its third witness.
The Kempton Park Magistrates Court heard how a witness was shocked when a police officer asked him and his friend to kill her husband. Jabulo Vincent Kaneni was the first witness to take the stand against convicted murderer Nomia Rosemary Ndlovu and her co-accused Nomsa Mudau. Ndlovu and Mudau pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to kill Mudau's husband, Justice Mudau. Guneni claimed he and his friend Jabulani Machali met with Mudau in Tembisa on the 23rd of February 2018, where she asked them to kill her husband. As of the date of this video, this case is still ongoing. We extend our deepest condolences to the victims and their families affected by the tragic events surrounding the Nomia Rosemary Ndlovu murder case. Our thoughts are with all those who have been impacted by this awful tragedy. I hope that the families find the strength and support that they need during this incredibly difficult time. And there you have it. We hope you enjoyed this video. If so, we really hope you'll subscribe.